I am your host. You're watching Financial Markets, where we look at mainly the stock exchanges around the world and the different performances from the different stakeholders and big companies around the world, but also our local and regional markets here, trying to make a way for our markets to be able to become better, and for you yourself to know how you can participate and get to seek out opportunities in the financial markets world. Now, remember, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex, and Altex is a private stock exchange licensed by the Capital Markets Authority 5 years ago, and now they do have a product under the ZABU initiative where they are bringing you treasury bonds at your table, and this is via your mobile phone. You can now access different treasury bonds not only here in Uganda but across East Africa by simply dialing *292# and following the prompts, and you will be able definitely to get to wherever you want to get to as far as investing in the debt instruments is concerned. Now, with that dialing *292#, you will definitely open the door to Altex in terms of your mobile wallet. You can be able to transact money off of your mobile money and use it to invest. And if you're out there and you want also a sell, you can still get to Altex and be able to find buyers of your debt. And so that is Altex for you there. They have the best interest rates. Their affordability is good. With as little as 15,000, you can start your trading and be able to interact with other traders as well, and even learn more about the products. They do also have an exchange traded fund which you can check out as well. Altex East Africa doing something new. Now let's wind up the markets here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Like I said, we did have a mediocre performance mainly from the stocks here in Uganda, and the movement was good, especially for big counters like Umeme Limited. But we did have newcomers on the movement list, and I just read out Uganda Craze as one of them, and then also MTN. MTN wasn't really new, but at least we did still see scattered activity here and there in terms of the number of companies participating in the trades. Now, another surprise here was New Vision. New Vision has been quite silent on the stock exchange for quite some months now, and yesterday, surprisingly, the company came up to actually trade on the third day of trading, and we are seeing a total value of about 2.15 million Ugandan shillings gross turnover out of about 13,901 shares that were transacted on the stock exchange. Now, we are talking about a company, a printing and publishing company that was established in 1986 in March as a multimedia publishing company engaged in the business of newspaper and magazine publishing, internet publishing, television and radio broadcasting. Of course, we do have other companies that are listed that are in the same industry, including NMG, that is Nation Media Group, that has subsidiaries here in Uganda too, and are closely competing with the company. The company we are talking about here got listed in 2004 on the Uganda Stock Exchange. That was in November, and the majority shareholders are the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and the Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, with a collective holding of about 53.3% of stake here at the company. The public now only holds about 46.7% of New Vision Printing and Publishing Company. Looking at their current stock price and the market capitalization, the company has a total market capitalization of close to 11.9 billion Ugandan shillings, and this represents about 0.056 of the 21.05 trillion Ugandan shillings total market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange equity market and they are the 16th most valuable. Really not bad out of the 18 companies. And looking at their current number of shares that are floating, we have about 76.5 million of them, and these are valued at 11.9 billion Ugandan shillings. Closing the day yesterday was no shift in price of the stock here at New Vision Printing and Publishing Company. The company retained a stock price of 155 Ugandan shillings per share. However, the New Vision Printing and Publishing Company began the year with the price of 267.00 Ugandan shillings, and since then the company has shed off close to 42%, unfortunately, ranking it the 13th on the Uganda Securities Exchange in terms of year to date. In terms of trading, New Vision Printing and Publishing Company is the 7th most traded on stock, and this comes with, in the last 3 months, they have about 14,000 shares that have been transacted, valued at exactly 2.18 million Ugandan shillings over the period. The company doesn't have intensified activity, but scattered activity, much better than many other stocks, especially the cross listing at 13,900 just of yesterday, and then 158 on 7th of November rather, which was the last day besides yesterday that the company was able to trade. And then on the 4th of August, they had about 2,600 shares volume. So they do have scattered activity, but also well balanced out, and they try to maintain their stock price a very stable one. And so they do also have competitors like Nation Media Group, who have lost about 13.2% in terms of value and have zero activity. So at least they compete in that sense there as well. That's New Vision Printing and Publishing Company. But well, in summary, at the Uganda Stock Exchange, we did have a total of about 696 million Ugandan shillings turnover overall for the Uganda Securities Exchange trading, and about 3.39 million shares that were transacted, mainly coming in from the Umeme stock that had about 3.26 million shares of the 3.39 million shares that were transacted on the exchange yesterday. And the data here shows about a 379% improvement in the volumes and a market capitalization of 21 trillion that was maintained at the Uganda Stock Exchange. That's definitely it for you, ladies and gentlemen. The All Share Index moved downwards by 9.44 points because definitely of the contraction in the capitalization there of the stocks that lost value, especially from the cross-listed companies. The Uganda Securities Exchange Local Company Index, which tracks the aggregate performance of the local companies, also maintained its value at 269.3 points because generally there was no movement in price in terms of the local companies here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. To become a trader at the Uganda Stock Exchange is very, very simple. All you have to do is open your SCD account or Securities Central Depository, and you can do that in several ways. One of them is by using your phone. You can dial *165 *57 hash or *165 *5 hash, and then you choose option number 7 where we have Uganda Securities Exchange, and put in the details like personal information like national identification number. You must have an identity card, at least a personal identification card, and which can be identified with your names. And then you of course have to upload some other data concerning your personal biodata, and then the rest is history really. Also, you can visit useeasyportal.com. This portal gives you a chance to open your account online for yourself, so you can open it using your email address, using your passport photograph, and also using your national identification number. The next step to that is getting yourself a stockbroker who is licensed by the Capital Markets Authority to be able to trade on your behalf. And the rest really is history there at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to move away from Uganda and cross over to Nairobi and get to see what took place at the Nairobi Stock Exchange before we move to the rest of Africa. Now, there was a slight decline in the index, meaning overall the markets were not as good. That is at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And the data showed, however, a 275% improvement in the volume and 224% improvement in the turnover, 8% decline in the deals. The number of companies participating, however, in the trades here at the Nairobi Stock Exchange rather declined from 47 on average, at least for last week, to 43 Nairobi Securities Exchange listed equities participating in the trades. Olympia Capital Holdings, of course, we had 13 gainers and about 16 losers, and the gainers were led once again by Olympia Capital Holding, who led at a 7.91% share price appreciation, closing at 3.0 Kenyan shillings per share. He was followed by Total Kenya, who had a 5.93% share price appreciation, and Cooperative Bank of Kenya at a 4.56% share price appreciation. Whereas Longhorn Publishers had about 4.24% share price appreciation in price there. And then on the losing side, Standard Group came out at the bottom of the table at exactly about 9% share price depreciation, closing at 9.9 Kenyan shillings per share, followed by Sasini Tea and Coffee, as well as Liberty Kenya Holdings losing at 4.55% and 3.61% respectively at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Looking at the top movers here, surprisingly, this time it wasn't Safaricom, whom we are used to with the big volumes, but rather Equity Group Holdings, who came in with a volume of 7.75 million shares transacted on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which was the biggest for the day. He was followed very closely by Cooperative Bank of Kenya at a 7.23 million shares. Safaricom came in the third place at 4.01 million shares, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company had about 428,000 shares that were recorded on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. We're seeing equity really come out strongly as we wind up this week. We hope by the end of the week they will sustain the energy, but they did quite well here at the Nairobi Securities Exchange on the third day of trading. Regarding the performance of the NSE Market Index, that is the All-Share Index, which is the benchmark of performance at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The index, of course, had to lose some value for the third day of trading, and we are looking at a loss of about 0.24 points. Rather, they did actually have a gain. We did have about 0.19% gain and 0.24 increase in the value of the share index there, and we had about 127.79 points as the closing number of points for the all-share index. The NSE 20 as well moved upwards at a 0.21%, and the NSE 25 moved upwards at 0.26%. Generally, the markets in Nairobi were awesome, and despite the decline in the number of companies participating, there was a good volume improvement, there was a good share improvement, and the turnover also was quite healthy for the markets at the moment. Now, because of time, let's get to cross over to other African markets before we wind up and get to see what really took place. And I want to start with Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange had a gain of about 327.89 points in its all-share index. Now, remember, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is a sole official stock exchange for Zimbabwe Capital, bringing together companies looking for long-term capital in Zimbabwe. And as of June 2017, we had about 63 listed companies on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. That's a quite big stock exchange. And when we talk about such, we want to expand the potential for Africa, and we want to expand your potential as an investor, for you to know that you can move to Zimbabwe virtually and get to invest in some of the biggest companies there and get a return and get to put that return in the Ugandan economy. You're still helping the African financial markets. You're still contributing to the economies of Africa. And looking at this stock, it has mainly common stock or preferred stock, or maybe known as preferential stocks. And they also have convertible debt instruments for the treasury bonds type of investment products that are traded on the exchange. Since February 2009, the share prices have been quoted in US dollars, of course, as consequent of the country's hyperinflation, which rendered the Zimbabwean dollar impractical for trading on the bourse. Now, on the third day of trading, we had 30 of the 63 listings on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange participating in the trades, and the day ended with 17 gainers and just 8 losers. Mashonaland Holdings led the gainers at a 14.7% share price appreciation, and on the losing side we did have Edgar Stores come at the bottom. Well, the all-share index soared by over 327 points upwards, closing at 14,099 points. This is a very good movement, and I don't know why we haven't realized. Yes, the Zimbabwe market or economy might be turbulent and volatile, and so facing so many problems like hyperinflation, but they still do provide opportunity. Look at their stock exchange, gaining about 300 points in a single day of trading. That is not a joke. So if you have at least 8 companies in there, you must have at least 1 or 3 or 2 or 5 companies coming in as gainers and giving you value for your stock. And this is exactly what we are looking for in our markets as well. Diversity as well as value addition. Away from Zimbabwe, Nigerian Stock Exchange also registered a gain in their benchmark index, the Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index, which moved upwards by close to 1,303 points, and which was also a good day there for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The biggest stock exchange in Africa, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, as well had a positive movement towards the gaining side at a 649.12 points appreciation in their all-share index as well, the J203. Still, many opportunities were provided for the different investors there at the exchange. Now, moving away from the African markets, remember, we do want to cross the borders, and we don't want us to have a limited mindset. You can definitely invest anywhere in the world when it comes to financial markets. Now, across to the United States of America, we're looking at the third day of trading. Of course, today is Thanksgiving Day in the United States, and so the markets are closed, so don't expect any data coming in from the markets. Of course, they do have fluctuations, and they do have off-day trading, but this is limited, and so we don't expect much today. Now, the stocks on this Wednesday afternoon, following the release of the minutes from the Federal Reserve's latest policy meeting, which signaled a likely slowdown in the central bank's rate pace hikes, soared in the afternoon of Wednesday. Now, near about 5 minutes past 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, the S&P 500 was up by 0.6%, and the Dow was up by 0.3%, or both sessions high. And with the Nasdaq, which calculates basically the tech stocks here, it was up by 0.9%. Wednesday marks the week's final full trading day session at the US investors, and the US markets will be closed today for Thanksgiving, and also tomorrow we shall have only half-day trading as it is Black Friday there. That's it from the US Stock Exchange. You can follow us for more at Smart24 TV on Twitter and Anthony Sebale, and you will definitely get more on your latest updates. And of course, I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.
Smart24, driving business. Smart 24, driving business.
This is Jordan. When it comes to classwork, Jordan is magic. Jordan shines. Jordan makes his peers better. Jordan is a true leader. White Star Magic family. Be a leader. Be magic.